Welcome back, everybody. In this video, I want to talk about simplifying expressions with both decimals and fractions, and particularly focus on the order of operations as well. So let's do the order of operations again. With both decimals and fractions this time. So this is now the third time we've seen the order of operations. So hopefully, again, it's drilled in. I really do like this flow, though. I like that we're constantly repeating ideas. So we don't just do it once and then forget about it. Now we're seeing order of operations for a third time already, right? Because bringing in decimals this time. So we keep using our rules, our sign rules, our equation rules, our expression rules over and over and over again, but now with just different kinds of numbers. So we went from whole numbers to fractions and now to decimals as well. So remember that your first step, of course, is any sort of grouping symbol. So the main ones we tend to see are parentheses, brackets, you can see absolute values, etc. Next thing after that, we finish up and do our exponents. Third, you're going to multiply and divide, always from left to right. And then fourth, we do our adding and subtracting, again, from left to right. So just kind of putting everything together and just doing a little bit more practice with these different types of numbers. So here we're going to simplify 656 and 5/10. We're going to divide it by 1,000 and multiply it by 10. So first of all, I don't have any grouping symbols or exponents. So I'm going right into step 3, which is multiplication and division. It's really important there that you work from left to right. So you do whatever comes first. So in this case, I am going to divide first. Now, remember, we can use a shortcut here. So if it's a power of 10, you have 3 zeros. So I can move this 3 places to the left for division. So my first part here becomes 0.6565. And again, if you like, you can put that leading 0 out front. Now I bring down the multiplication of 10. And again, I can use a shortcut here. So this is 1 0. And because we are multiplying, we're going to move to the right. So I take this decimal and move it back to the right 1 spot. So I have 6 and 565 thousandths. Again, that leading 0 I can really drop here. I don't need extra zeros out front of a whole number. So that would be my final answer. Here I have negative 1.2 squared plus 5.8. Again, I do have parentheses, but the parentheses here are just to clarify the exponent. So there's nothing to do inside the parentheses, which is what we really do for the grouping step. But I do have an exponent, and I am noticing that that exponent is touching the whole parentheses. So that whole thing gets multiplied out, negative 1.2 times negative 1.2. Now, negative times a negative is going to be a positive. So I know my answer is positive, but I do have to do out that multiplication. Remember that for decimals, I don't have to line up the decimal points here. They just happen to line up naturally, but you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to multiply just 12 times 12, which is 144. So what are we going to get? Let's see, 4 and then 2 here. Here I'm going to have 2 and 1. So I do get 144. And then I incorporate my decimals. I have 1 here, and I have 1 here. So I have 2 altogether. So my answer will have 2 decimal points in it. So this part then becomes positive 1 and 44 hundredths plus 5.8 or 5 and 8 tenths. Now, when we go back to adding or subtracting, you do have to line up your decimal points. So a lot of work off to the side here. I can attach a 0 on the end just to help me stay organized. And then I start by adding my columns. Decimal point comes straight down. 5, let's see, 6, 7. So I have 7. and 24 hundredths. Okay. All right, so let's do an expression here, and we're going to evaluate this expression for the given x and y value. So I'm going to start by just plugging in those x and y values. So I have 5 and 68 hundredths plus 0.9 or 9/10 squared divided by 100 over 0.2. Now, I use parentheses because it helps me when I evaluate, but there's nothing to do in the grouping step here. Remember that grouping step means inside parentheses. So these are just being used to clarify. So I have addition, I have an exponent, I have division. Also remember that when we have a complicated fraction like this, we do typically simplify that numerator and my denominator separately first. Here, the denominator doesn't have to do you don't have to do anything, but you do want to simplify that numerator first before you do the overall division. So it's kind of like hitting grouping symbols around the numerator. So I'm going to start here with my exponent. So I have 0.9 times 0.9. Now, 9 times 9 is 81. So I do 1, carry the 8. 9 times 0 is 0 plus 8. Now, the next group, I'm technically multiplying by zeros here, so it's not going to change anything. And I have 1 decimal point here, 1 here, so I have 2 altogether. So this part here, I'm going to rewrite, becomes 0.81 divided by 100. Now, my next step here, so again, I'm focusing on the numerator still. I see addition, I see division. Division comes next. Now, that 0.81 divided by 100, I can use that shortcut rule. So I have 2 zeros, so I move 2 places, and to the left because I have division, right? So I go to the left, and you have division here. So I'm going to put in a 0 and put that decimal point, and my problem becomes 5.68 plus 0.0081, and I can put that extra 0 up front for my whole number. All right, so for my next step, I'm going to go ahead and do my addition, and I do need to line up my decimal points here. So I'm going to attach some extra zeros to the top number just to keep organized. So 0 plus 1 is 1, 0 plus 8 is 8. Here I have an 8, a 6, decimal point comes straight down, and a 5. So finally, my problem is 5.6881 over 0.2. I know I'm not reading it correctly, but just to help clarify where that decimal is. And finally, we're ready for the overall division. So the bottom number goes on the outside here. Remember that we don't like to divide with decimals, so I am going to move this one spot to the right to clear it out, and I'll make the same change on the inside. So I'm actually going to end up dividing 2 into 56.881, so 881 thousandths. Again, some students don't rewrite it, and that's okay. I like to rewrite it, makes it easier for me to see. I just think it's a little bit neater. So 2 goes into 5 2 times, which is 4. Bring down the 6. 2 goes into 16 8 times. Now, you get a remainder of 0 here, but I can't stop because I do have more digits. So that decimal comes up, and then I bring down the 8. 2 goes into 8 4 times. I got to keep going. 2 goes into 8 again, also 4 times. Bring down the 1. Now, 2 does not go into 1. I do have to put a 0 up top here to show that. 0 times 2 is 0. So I still have a 1. And I am going to attach a 0 here so I can finish the problem. I bring it down. 2 goes into 10 5 times. And now finally we are done. I don't have to add more extra zeros if I don't need them. I can just stop there. So I have an answer of 228 and then 4,405 10,000s finally as my final answer here. So we can still apply the order of operations. Obviously, it just gets more tedious because decimals and fractions and things are more tedious to do by hand, but we can still go ahead and solve them. All right, I want to do one last example here. All right, so let's say the area of a triangle is, so we haven't done, we've done lots of area, but not so much triangle yet, is 1/2 times the base or the bottom times the height. And we're going to find the area of the following triangle. Okay. So what we're told here, so here's a picture of a triangle, and the area of a triangle is not just length times width like it is with a rectangle or with a square. It's a little bit more complicated. A triangle is really half of a rectangle, so that's why you have this half idea here. So it's 1/2 the base, which is also the bottom, and the height. So this is our base here. So this is our base. And then this here is your height. So our height here is 3, and our base here is 5.6. So to find the area, I'm just going to take my formula. It's 1/2 times the base, so times 5.6, and then multiply it also by the height, which is 3. Now, it doesn't matter the order in which you multiply because it's all multiplication, and multiplication is commutative. One thing I will note, though, it is kind of hard to multiply with decimals and fractions together, although you can do it eventually. So you may want to change either your decimals to fractions or your fractions to decimals, whatever is easier for you. Now, this 1/2 is one that we've seen before. It's a pretty common fraction, so you may already know that it's 0.5. So this is a go-on where you may just want to change that over to 0.5 to make it easier. If you don't know how to do that, remember that you can always go back to your division there and attach that decimal and those extra zeros to figure out the decimal. So now I'm just going to multiply one at a time. So I'm going to do the 5 6/10 times the 1/2. So let's see, I have 30 here, then I have 25, so I have 28. Placeholder, and multiplying by 0 doesn't change anything. Now don't forget, we're not lining up the decimal, we're counting. So I have 1 here and 1 here. So I have 2 altogether. So this becomes 2.80. I can drop that ending 0. So I have 2 8/10. Now don't forget the 3, also times 3. So now I do it again, 2.8 times 3. Lining up my digits for multiplication. 8 times 4 is 24. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. And again, I have 1 decimal place here and 0 here. So I have 1 altogether. So it's going to be 8.4, or 8 4/10. Now this was in feet. So this is going to be square feet, or feet squared, for my answer. So you still also multiply the units when you find area, even if it's a triangle. So maybe that 1/2 is throwing you off there. It doesn't matter. The units still do multiply as well. So it's going to be either feet squared or square feet as your final result.